to Purposeful. I'm your host, Ashley Bernardi, founder of Nardi Media, an award-winning strategic communications and media relations firm that helps mission-driven leaders and organizations turn meaningful work into messages that move people. And here at Nardi Media, we don't just chase headlines, we build authority. We help our clients clarify their message, train them to show up powerfully on camera and on stage, and secure earned media across national TV, top tier podcasts, and major publications so their ideas reach the audiences who need them most. Purposeful is an extension of that work, creating space for thoughtful conversations with people who are using their voice, their platform, and their leadership to make the world better. I am so excited about today's conversation, my friends. It's all about authenticity, confidence, leadership, and what it really means to show up fully as yourself in a world that often rewards performance over presence. So joining us is my friend Pam Sherman. She's founder of Sherman Edge, a global leadership coach, actor, writer, and author of the incredible new book, Play You, The Role of a Lifetime. Pam has spent years helping leaders, professionals, and organizations bridge what she calls the believability gap, the distance between who we fundamentally are and how we show up in the world. And what makes Pam's perspective so unique is that it blends leadership coaching with lessons from the stage, and the dancer in me loves that. Her work asks a fascinating question. What if the tools actors use to become believable characters could actually help us become more ourselves? Pam, I am so excited and grateful to welcome you to Purposeful. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here today.
Oh my goodness, that was wonderful. First of all, I love hearing all about Nardi Media because the first thing I learned as an actor is that it's not about me. So when you were introducing me, I was like, "There's white noise." When you were introducing you, I was completely in it and listening to it.
I love
And
it.
and frankly, isn't that what we want from our leaders? It's not about you; it's about the other person.
Yes, and we teach that even what I do in communications, and even as a former journalist, that when I was covering stories, it's always about what's in it for the viewer, what's in it for the listener. What are we going to learn? What is the viewer, why should they care? And I feel like that's probably very related to acting, the foundations of acting too.
Exactly. It's interesting. You'll often hear actors talking about other actors, and they won't say, well, they're great because of their ability to have, use accents, but because they're generous. They're great
Yeah.
listeners. They take me in. They're aware of what's going on around them. They're fully present. You hear about these words, and this is the kind of work that I started to realize that we want from our leaders. We want them to pay attention to us. We want them to be really listening, and we want to make deeper connections so that we can all do great work together. And that's why this counterintuitive idea that actors are pretending, yes, of course, they are given a fictionalized script. But the definition of acting that I learned is that acting is the ability to live truthfully in given imaginary circumstances.
Oof.
Replace that word imaginary with just nothing, circumstances. We're all wanting to be truthful, believable, persuasive, impactful. And that's what led to my work over the last almost 20 years as a coach and a facilitator. But most important, it led to this book, which is the culmination of a very long journey to get it on the page.
Yeah, and okay, I have so many questions. I want to
Great.
talk about your background, but first, something that's like really standing out to me right now is that we're all like, it's a way of living truthfully who we are. But I wonder, like, why do you think it is that we really struggle with that so much?
Well, you started in the introduction, you said something about being performative, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of that going on. We live,
yeah,
it's almost like we're being flattened out with social media and with technology. And what we
I
have
feel
to be
it.
are three-dimensional, feeling, imperfect human beings. We need more of that now. And in those imperfections lies the beauty of connection, lies the beauty of vulnerability. And I actually think that we're going to find a return to humanity. I'm actually seeing that now. I read a fascinating interview with the AI actor, Tilly, that was created. And
Yeah.
it's so brilliant. It's such a brilliant profile because what became more interesting was her creator. Like, let's focus on the creator and not the AI. Let's focus on the human beings whose lives may be made easier by technology. But most important, let's focus on each other because that's what great actors do to make a performance that you, the audience, want to watch.
Oh, so good. Power of connection, humanity. We're gonna have this conversation is gonna be so great. Okay, so Pam, though quickly for our audience that might not know you, but now they do. What a gift. Tell us a little bit about your background in acting and how you transitioned to leadership and where you are now.
Well, I can I start in the 2nd grade where
Uh, yes, I would
dream of
expect
being an
you. Yeah.
actor. Literally, I would play piano with the door wide open, hoping that a wandering talent agent would hear me sing and cast me on Broadway. But they don't wander the streets of Staten Island, trust me. And I came from a very traditional family. And so to them, being an actor was not what you do, it's what you could enjoy, but not what you did for a living.
Yeah.
So I took what I thought was I thought it would be like being a lawyer on TV, and I went to law school. Ironically, along with all my fellow actors, we won all sorts of trial advocacy competitions because we could act like lawyers. And when I got out of law school, I took a job in Washington, D.C., where all of a sudden, I felt like I couldn't be myself. I was wearing
Mm.
what I call an ill fitting suit, both
Mhm.
actually and metaphorically.
Mhm.
It was not at all like being a lawyer on TV. You weren't like solving the crime in 1 hour. You certainly weren't like running up the courtroom steps to make an argument that was going to change the course of your client's life. It was mostly lying around a law library, actually back then with real books or doing research. And I would shut the door to my office and I would cry at the ceiling, like saying, "This is not who I am. I don't feel like I'm showing up as my best self." And sure enough, I decided to take an acting class. I snuck off how I did it and still managed to, bill all those hours, but I did. And it was suddenly in that acting studio that I was reminded of what I had learned in taking acting classes as a child and in college that, actors aren't pretending. It's a creative explosion of collaboration. They're doing real deep work to understand their character's journey, their vision for that character, obviously they're doing it within the world of the play, but they're doing it in service to an audience who will ultimately watch that play. And my law firm went out of business. I thought my secure profession would you know, be there forever. And I was profiled in People magazine for ditching my day job to pursue my dreams. Became a full-time working actor in Washington, D.C., and you could cue the laughter. And it was from that I got a phone call from the head of training at the Department of Justice, cue the laughter, and and they said, "Can you help make my lawyers more interesting?" I thought that's what she said. And I was like, "I think I can." Like, what is a lawyer's job? It's to persuade, convince, to influence, and
Yeah.
to have a decision maker, an audience, follow them on a journey and take them in the direction that they want them to go. And they just do it with the facts and the law. That's the story that they're telling. And that actually took me off on a journey working with leaders all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Cincinnati and every place in between. And frankly, to me, it's been so purposeful to be
Yeah.
able to bring what I have learned in both arenas and have it make a difference for my audiences so that they can be the best that they can be in order to impact their audiences with who they are.
I feel like I hear second grade Pam here, but has is second grade Pam here feeling like she has been living out her purpose now?
In the
Yeah.
end, yeah. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. I hadn't been on stage for about 13 years, and
Wow.
8 years ago I went back on stage in a one-woman show about my idol, a journalist named Irma Bombeck, who some in the audience might know, but if they don't, she was iconic. She was the most published columnist in America. She was on Good Morning America, on The Tonight Show. She was beloved and just a really graceful, witty, incredibly prolific writer. And when I was given the opportunity to go back on stage, I was like, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm busy. I'm making a difference for my clients." But I'm so glad I did because I was reminded about all the lessons that I brought to my business in the beginning. And it actually helped, I think, get me to finish my book because the stories from
Yeah.
the stage are woven into the stories of, the IT director who's trying to make a decision, or the leader who really wants to bring his purpose into his company. All those stories are the same as a great actor stepping on a stage alone and trusting group she's working with, the collective, to produce an experience for an audience. Isn't that the same thing we want from our leaders in business?
Yeah, and isn't that the same thing we want for ourselves too? So, like, this goes to my next question, which is, what does it mean to play you? What does that look like for us, for the listeners?
Well, I think the most important thing is you've got to start with a journey of self awareness. You have to know
Yeah.
who you are.
Yep. Yep.
And to that end, it's very simple. Who are you at the core? Right?
Mhm.
If you had to think of one word that defines you at the core, and then what do you believe in? What are your character
Mhm.
beliefs or AKA values? You put
Mhm.
those together. I call those your power words. Those are the
Mm.
words which fuel your power. Your power is not in your title, in your role, in the hierarchy. Your power lies within you and what's important to you and what you believe in. When you
Mm.
do that foundational work, from there, you can create what I like to call your why statement, which is your purpose. Shall I share with you what my
I want to hear, yes, and if you're willing to share with our audience, we would be honored.
so my core defining word I couldn't find. I usually I do this with thousands of people around the world, Ashley, and I say, think of one word that defines you at the core, and there's only two rules. It can't be situational, late, tired, hungry. And your friends and family would have to agree with you because there's always somebody who says inspirational, and everyone's going, "Yep, nope, nope, that's not the word I would use."
Test it out with your kids and your spouse.
Exactly. My word came to me when I was actually speaking to a group of CEOs in Morocco, and I had done it like a 7 hour, facilitation. And someone came up and said, "Thank you for sharing your energy with us." And it just hit me. That's my word, energy. And from there, I was able to come up with my purpose statement, which is very simply to share my energy with the world. When I
Mm.
do that, that's when I'm making an impact. When I protect my energy, which is good for me, I can bring my energy to others. When I bring my energy in a focused, present way, in a positive way to others, that's when I make a difference. So that's my word. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but
Yeah.
to play you, you have to know you and you have to do this work.
Oof. What changes when you begin, or maybe leaders that you coach, or when readers from your book, what changes for folks when they do find their word, when they do find their statement? What have you observed?
Well, suddenly you know what to pay attention to. You can pay attention to how do these words show up in your voice, your body language, in how you communicate. You have a north star. I actually call it put your power on a post-it note. So I have clients who are sending me pictures of their post-it notes with their mission statements on it. Because your mission statement is your how. I say your
Yeah.
purpose is your why, your mission
Yeah.
is your how, your vision is your where. It's super simple, right? This isn't is something that I made up. It's something that I live by. But when you put your power on a Post-it note and you're having a difficult conversation with someone, you're gonna pay attention to your core values. You're gonna pay
That's right.
attention to your core defining word. You're going to show up with some clarity about what's important to you and how you want that person to perceive you. It makes all the difference in the world, I think. And that foundational work leads to great storytelling, leads to great interaction, and ultimately helps you. You can't know where you're going if you don't know who you are.
That's so true. And I wonder also, like, I wonder, there has to be an element of unlearning here, because it seems it's being ourselves is often harder than becoming who we think we're supposed to be. I think for
Mhm.
me personally, that was especially true like in my 20s. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I will be honest, I didn't find my, very much like you, I didn't really start playing Ashley again until I started dancing again. Because like
Mm.
your love was acting, mine was dancing. I started dancing again in my 40s, and I just finished my third dance recital this year, and I am more myself than ever before because I have gotten back into my body. And
Mhm.
so I wonder, just why is it so hard for us to find ourselves? Like, why do we have to wait until we're 40? I wish I had known when I was 20.
Well, first of all, I work with a lot of I call them next gen 20 somethings, and
Yeah.
I have a couple of them myself. I think it's I think it's your 20s are particularly hard because you are
Yeah.
figuring out who you are. But if you have a North Star, it does make in let's face it, there's anxiety about, where will I work? What will I do? What role am I supposed to play? How am I supposed to behave? Who
Right.
who will
Right.
be, relationships, both, personal and professional, seem complicated. But I think when you do have that base of core values, And we did this with our kids all the time. I mean, my son wrote his college essay on how we ran our family like a Fortune 500 company, along with values and mission statements, and
Perfect.
it was
Yep.
great.
It's
But
amazing.
I don't regret it because they knew what the North Star was, and I was constantly intoning to my kids, and they live by it now. In their 20s. My son is moving out of his 20s, and I say, you've got to be kind because that's how you treat other people. You
That's
have to
right.
be grateful because that's how you know what you have. And you have to be independent because I'm not going to pay for you. This is all that you need to know.
That's it.
That's it. But they also understood underlying values of what
Yeah.
community and philanthropy and purpose. We used to have arguments about this. What if you don't have a dream like being a dancer or an actor? Purpose doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are.
Yeah.
So I think some of that's doing some deep, hard introspection. And it is the journey of self awareness that will help you. But you aren't you in a vacuum, Ashley. You are you for others and with others. And so that is the important part of the equation that helps you become believable. It's not enough for you to be just confident. You have to
Yeah.
be confident in furtherance of something else, of a higher purpose.
So let's talk about that. You said the word believable, and in the book, you introduced the idea of the believability gap. So that feels like something almost everyone experiences. Can you tell us what exactly it is?
Well, it's interesting because there is a difference between authenticity and believability, but the
Mm,
believability gap is quite simply the gap between who we fundamentally are and how we think we're supposed to show up, which makes us
mhm,
believe in ourselves less. And it's the
mhm,
gap between who we are and how we show up for others, which makes them believe in us less. So there's an internal
mhm.
gap and there's an external gap. And you cannot solve for one and then not solve for the other. Because in my world, you are you for those you wish to impact, lead, and serve. So you must
Right.
solve the internal gap, do that work on yourself, but you also have to understand your audiences, what they need and want, and how you're the only person who can uniquely give that to them. That's ultimately when you solve for both, it deepens confidence. It deepens the concept of authenticity. Authenticity is just about you. Believability is about you and your audiences.
And why does the believability matter so much for leadership and communication?
Well, first of all, because we need to trust our leaders, and believability means I know who you are. You're showing up in a way that I can trust, and your communication is all centered around those, values driven behaviors that I can, that feels safe to me. It helps me build my confidence that I can go do great things on your behalf because I want to follow your vision with my heart and my mind, right? Leadership, my definition is very unique. Would you like to hear it?
I want yes, please.
It sat on the desk of my husband's first boss's, you know, on his credenza behind him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this quote. Leadership is the ability to communicate a vision and gain commitment to it. So to me, it's about communication. It's
Mhm.
about you can have a vision for your day, for your life, for your project. You don't have to anyone can be a leader in this construct. But to be a leader, you have to have followers. And there are certain kind of followers. Commitment. It's a heart. It's really, we're committed to what are we committed to? Our community, our family, our
Mhm.
spirituality. So this feels to me like a purposeful definition of leadership that changes the dynamic of how you communicate. And so believability is required.
That makes complete sense to me. And also, I want to talk about some techniques too. And this
Yes.
almost feels counterintuitive, but you use acting techniques to help people become more real, which I think is so cool. So, why do those help? And then I also want to have you give our audience some that we can take away from today.
Yes. So, the actor's journey is really about understanding who their character is.
Yeah.
So, one tool is look for clues in your script. In the workplace, that would be a job description, feedback, talking to your director. Why did you hire me? What did you see in me? Those
Mm,
clues in the script are really critical. The second thing great actors do is they understand their through line, the stories from the past that illuminate the path to the future. So, becoming a great, I call it story sharer, not teller.
mm.
Telling is about, wagging a finger at somebody. Sharing is about, I want to bring you into my story. So becoming a
Yep.
great story sharer is a really important tool in the actor's toolkit, but most important in the leadership toolkit. And then ultimately paying attention to your audience, understanding who they are. Who is this for? How do I ignite them? How do I connect with them more deeply? And the stories in the book and the tools in the book, and it's a real, this is the part of the book I love, Ashley. It's got actually, I want people to write in the book. It's a
Mhm.
choose your own adventure book.
Yep.
And I think it's really, really important that people take it and use the exercises. Did my phone just ring? I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I tell everybody, the most important thing in an actor's toolkit is to remain fully present no matter what happens around you. Be fully present and connect to your audiences. So I hope those are a few of the actors' toolkit uses that are important.
Yeah, it makes me think so much like dancing too, to really connect with your audience. And in the dance world, we always say, like, even if you mess up, even if you forget something while you're tapping, you just
Yes.
keep going. You don't
Keep
stop and give the face. Your audience is watching you. They don't care if you missed your shuffle, whatever, da 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 da, right? It
And
really
they
is.
don't know.
They
I
have
mean,
no
my
idea.
favorite story in the book, which was really about teamwork and psychological safety, was there was a very iconic typewriter that we used in the Irma Bombeck play, and she pulls it out from under her bed and she puts it on an ironing board, which she actually did. And one night in Cleveland, the ironing board was there, but the typewriter wasn't under the bed, crawling all over the set looking for it. And I looked at my audience and I said, "Those darn kids." And I went off stage and I got the typewriter. And the poor, production assistant is going like this. Sorry, sorry, sorry. She's handing me this, saying she's sorry. And I'm like, it's okay. It was such a great moment because we all learned lessons about how to
Yes.
trust each other, how to check on each other, how to hold each other up, and how to have grace when an accident happens and move on. The audience
True.
loved it. So
Yep.
I think leadership is kind of like live theater. You don't know what's going to happen, but if you do it with grace and intention and generosity, you will be more believable and you will take your audience on a great journey.
I can so feel that, and I love this advice. So, you also talk a lot about story arc and understanding our own character. So,
Yes.
for like, here's the thing: like, a lot of people feel lost right now. They feel crazed. I get, I mean, in my community, as a mom of three in school, a lot of people in my community are just straight up overwhelmed and stressed.
Yeah.
So what message do you have for them if they've lost their confidence, their purpose, their path, which I see happening a lot?
Well, it may sound like you've heard it before, but you must take your oxygen first.
Yeah.
It is critical. And, I start every leadership coaching with an understanding of mind, body, and spirit. Energy leadership is as important as straight up the tasks and the to do list. So, for me, you've got to have time for journaling, being
Yeah.
grateful, breathing.
Yep.
And I get it. You're managing all these different things. Turning off your phone. It's easy to say, but it actually isn't easy to do, and you've got to
Facts.
do it. You
Yeah.
have to. So, those are tools that actors use. I mean, great actors go and stretch and they breathe and they prepare for their performance. A great dancer has to stretch and relax. So
Mm-hmm.
does a great mom. So does a
Mm-hmm.
great
Mm-hmm.
CEO. So
Mm-hmm.
does a great community organizer. Fill in the blank. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing that for yourself, you're actually affecting who you are as a leader, and you
Yeah.
can't show up in a way that I think makes a difference for others.
I so relate to that as someone who years ago did not journal. And then it wasn't until I had a health crisis in my mid 30s did I discover journaling. And now it's a non negotiable. Like, I didn't get to journal this morning because I had to be at work very, very early. And I still feel a little off balance somehow
Yes.
because I haven't yet taken the time to connect with myself today. But because I've made it such an integral part of my life, I really feel it when I don't. And it's changed my life, and I keep every single journal. They're all behind me in like three boxes over here. So I can attest to the power of just journaling or just going within first, hearing your own thoughts, your own voice, what your intuition, your gut, like it's almost
And
like
by
a
the way,
third.
that
Yeah.
is an actor's journey. I keep
Yeah.
all of the notebooks when I start on I get a role. I create a notebook that is, everything I say about my character, everything other people say about my character. I journal as the character. I my notes,
Oh.
and it's really it's such a rich, opportunity for you to step back. I can't tell you at the end of every engagement in coaching, when I ask, give me a list of how you've grown and changed. I just got one, over the weekend from a client, and it was beautiful. It was so meaningful because you have to take stock and you can't wait till December to do it. You've got to do it, I would say, constantly.
Yeah.
Every month. What happened this month?
Yep.
I end my year by thinking about I write a letter, it's in the book, it's by Ben Zander, "Give Yourself an A." It's the end of the year looking back,
Mhm.
what did I, achieve in all the areas of my life that are important,
Mhm.
as if it's already happened.
Yeah.
And I
Ooh,
think
love
about
it.
it as I feel it,
Mhm.
and with that vision in mind, I go ahead and live my life. But every month I check on it and see, how am I doing? How am I stacking up to the letter that I wrote? Because the end of the year is going to come. And not every year I wrote I was going to finish my book, and it took me 8 years, Ashley. But I am here to say that everything you dream of, you've probably done in some way in the past, but you have to pay attention to your dreams and take action on them, even if it's incremental, because
Mhm.
ultimately they won't come to fruition if you don't, and they will come to fruition if you do.
So true. It really is, and I know that writing down these types of things makes it even that's, like, the hardest thing to do sometimes is to write down your dreams, your desires, your goals, but I've always found that when I do that, it ends up happening.
It is
Uh,
more likely, in fact, the thing about the letter is you're attaching a feeling, and I
yeah.
do this in exercises with clients. They're like, "Wow, that was so much easier." I'm like, "Yeah, it makes it it is easy when you write it down. Yes, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to go through all the hardship to get to that point, but if you don't write it down, if you don't say it out loud." I wrote a one-woman play about my best friend who passed away. It was a comedy, really funny. But I would tell complete strangers I was writing a play. I've never started something that I didn't finish. And part of that is because I talk about it out loud. I bring community into it.
Yeah.
I think
Put
that
energy into it.
how do you play you? You have to put you out there. So,
Right. So, what about for folks that have outdated stories about themselves
yes.
or even the I'm not good enough, I can't, I'm too old? Like, I mean, some could look at me and be like, oh, you're a 43-year-old dancer. Like, yes, I am. Right. Though, so there's a
Yes.
lot of outdated stories or perhaps limiting beliefs. How do you help walk people through that?
So it is. We have this idea, or I was thinking about, all the bad guys in movies, right? Like but what if they lived inside you, right?
Yeah.
The archetypes, I call them, and there are these archetypes, and there are some that are, hello, imposter, my old friend.
Hmm.
There's that age narrative.
Hmm.
There is the bad guy narrative. Like I have to be a directive person in order to get people to do
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's I love the understudy, the person who thinks they have to do it like the other person because they can't do it like them.
Yep.
So you have to first step is awareness, right?
Yeah.
You have to identify these narratives, and then you have to reframe them, and you have to rewrite them, and you have to actually say out loud and be aware of it. Oh, that's my narrative coming through.
Yep.
You know, some imposter helps us. Anxiety is not all a bad thing. It can actually
No.
move you towards your goals.
Yeah.
But when you find yourself not functioning, not going, able to really focus, not having clarity, that's when you realize, oh, I need to reframe the old narrative. And that's what's bringing me down. I go through dark times every January. I live in a very cold, dark place. And so I I have to double down on my gratitude, double down on, the positive psychology tools that are they're not the actor's toolkit, but they are the human toolkit that we need to reframe those stories. And, even doing the work, I realized we have believability derailers that may come at us. It's our job to pay attention to them, acknowledge them, and then move them aside.
I love that. I love what you said is like, I call it out loud. Like that's right. Like that's this, like say it out loud. Because I'm very much like you. I'm like, one of my words is energy and joy because that's just how I live. Like I want to
Right.
spread my joyful energy everywhere. But I would be a robot if I was like that all the time. So like I definitely have those thoughts and I love the idea. I think this is great advice, listeners. Call it out loud, say it out loud and then let it move aside. You have to acknowledge it. It's just like a feeling too. Like let's say you're angry and you don't let it out. It just builds in and festers, right? You've got to like let it
Absolutely. And by
right?
the way, joy is a a constant, but it doesn't have to always be how you behave, right?
Right.
You have other values that are important to you too. And
Yeah.
so, my energy sometimes needs to be recharged. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell my husband, I have run out of words. We are done.
I'm
Can
gonna
we just
remember
not
that.
talk to each other?
I
Really
am gonna
like that.
remember that with my whole family. So thank you for that. Okay, I also want to talk about the breaking the fourth wall because this is a concept in theater and you apply that to communication. So what is that? What does it mean in everyday life?
Well, it really means right now we're having this conversation, but you and I are really thinking about the audience who's going to listen to this. And are we reaching them? Are we connecting with them? Are we meeting their needs and wants? Are we giving them takeaways of value? So, a big part of breaking the fourth wall is understanding deeply your audience before you understand yourself. Too often in communications, it's here's what I need you to know instead of what do I want you to think, feel, and do when I'm done? And how might that what emotional pump do I have to prime of yours to get you to pay attention to me?
Yeah.
And so, the stories that I share are really about clients that I had to work with to get them to understand you may think it's all about you, but you have to break through the fourth wall. I just love The Office. Well, think of every show now where they're talking to the camera. Are you talking to me? Everyone in every audience, whether it's one person or a thousand, needs to feel like you're speaking to them for
Yeah.
some moment because
Yeah.
then they walk away, feel seen. That builds
Mhm.
trust and that
Mhm.
creates true inspiration, I think.
Truly seen and heard. I feel like that's what of that everyone wants to feel that. And if leaders
Exactly.
can accomplish that, how have you seen that shift workplace cultures?
Gosh. So my favorite story is in the pandemic, and a client of mine, everything's hybrid now. Suddenly it's virtual. But she created these videos, Monday Motivation, and she would like film them, and I'd get them every Sunday. And she, first it was all very red and, serious, big global company. Then she started to calm down and she was cooking, with her kids and she was doing it in the playroom. And she was talking about the team and shouting out their successes and talking about what was coming. And it was such, and it, she got the highest employee engagement scores, for that quarter because they felt like they were all in it together with
Yeah.
her. And they looked
Yeah.
forward to the clicking on those videos. So, in this world of virtual leadership, it does change workplace culture for you to be intentional about how you do your meetings, to be intentional about how you
Mm.
all show up in meetings, and ultimately, making sure that you're keeping it fun and light and something that people want to show up for. Not like,
That's
oh, I got to go
right.
to that meeting again,
Yeah,
right?
I always think that like, oh, I want to make my meetings fun because we have a Monday meeting, like, and I want everyone to want to come to it too.
Right.
So I think that's such great advice. And I could talk to you for hours, Pam, but I want you to tell our audience where they can find out more about your book. Where can they buy your book? How can they work with you? Tell us all the good things.
I love it. They can find everything on www.thepamsherman.com because there is another Pam Sherman and she's a fitness instructor and she's clearly not me. I love her. So I am thepamsherman.com.
The Pam
You can
Sher I
find me
love
on
that.
LinkedIn, of course. And the book is available at every major outlet. Obviously, Amazon, where you can leave a 5-star review if you really love it. Barnes and Noble. You can find it at Walmart, Target, everywhere. I'm so excited. It's only been out for a month, Ashley, and the impact, what I'm hearing from people who are either listening to in their cars or writing in it, and is that it's resonating. And for
Yeah.
me, that's why I wrote it. I didn't write it for me. I wrote it for you.
And, having been an author myself, finishing a book, what a huge accomplishment. How does it feel now that you're on the other side of the 8-year process that you took yourself through?
And it was hard. There were some dark nights of the soul where I didn't think I could finish it, and I will just say because I wanted it to be an experience. I wanted the book to feel like you were working with. Someone asked me, "Are you
Yeah.
afraid no one will hire you now that you have the book out?" And the answer is no. I was more afraid that the journey of working with me, I wanted it to be felt by the reader so
Yeah.
that it would be interesting and actionable. And so to me, it's super satisfying and yet and people are always asking what's next. You know that
Of
as a
course,
as a dancer.
always.
As an
Uh,
actor, what are you appearing in next? I'm like, "I am appearing in Play You, the role of a lifetime for a very long time."
for the rest of my life. Yes, it's always fun. It's like after you have your after you birth a child. Oh, you're gonna go for the fourth? Nope, I'm gonna stick with my 3. Yeah.
As the youngest of 4, though, I would say I thank my mother for her effort.
I thank her too. Well, Pam, this has been so amazing. And as we close today's conversation, one thing definitely stands out. Confidence is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. And Pam, thank you for reminding us that in a world that often rewards performance and perfection, comparison, that our greatest advantage may actually be our humanity, just by playing you, playing me. Because leadership is not about playing a role that somebody else wrote for you. It's about understanding your character, owning your story, stepping into life stage with conviction. So, Pam, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for reminding us that the role of a lifetime is not someone else's, it's ours.